Welcome, everyone. My name is Dylan Frost, and I want to talk to you about a box. No, not this kind of box, but this kind. And what if I told you that I know a step-by-step process, a pretty simple and straightforward process, that whenever I got someone to put their email address into that box, I make on average over $100, and sometimes way more. Let me show you some stats. Back in May of this year, I got 502 people to give me their email address. And from those 502 people, I was able to generate $84,483 in sales. That averages out to $168 per person that gave me their email address on that promotion. Or how about this one? From January of this year, I only got 256 people to give me their email address on this one, but I generated $117,823 in sales. That's an average of $460 per email address that I collected. These are all very recent too, if you're noticing, very relevant, right? How about this one? Also from May of this year. I only got 260 people to give me their email address, but I collected $169,745 in total from those 260 people. That's $652 per email collected. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. This keeps going. How about this one? I got 464 people to give me their email address for this promotion, and I did $346,199 in sales. That's an average of $746 per email that I collected. You may have noticed something about these results. I don't need a lot of leads. I don't need a lot of emails to make a lot of money. And I'm guessing there's at least a few big shots watching live right now. And some of you guys are probably thinking, okay, all right, the strategy that you're going to reveal today, it might work with small audiences, but does it work at scale? Maybe some of the big shots here thinking, I've got a lot of leads I could drop. I have a lot of emails on my email list. Well, I can tell you it works at scale too. Here, I got 23,600 people to opt into this promotion. It generated $3 million in sales with those leads in a week. Now, all these sales were generated by webinars, just like the one that you are on now. Webinars where I sold a product or a service. Sometimes the product or service I'm selling is mine. Sometimes I'm selling someone else's product or service for a commission. You're actually in one of my carefully crafted webinars right now. Just the fact that you're here live streaming this right now or watching the limited time replay is proof that what I am doing works. And in this very webinar, I'm going to teach you how to create your own high converting webinar that can make you hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars in profit, no matter who you are or what you do. If that sounds totally ridiculous, trust me, it's not. Keep listening and you'll just see for yourself. Now, before we get into the teaching, there are a few things that we need to get clear on, a few things that we need to get straight with, and that starts with you. Have you ever sat through a webinar or a sales presentation or whatever? And it gets to the part where it's like, this is for you if, this is for you. This is not for you if, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you've been through that before. I see Tess says, yes, she's seen people do that before. Well, I'm not going to do that because there is no, this is not for you if on what I'm teaching today. All right. I do not care who you are. I do not care what you do. This is for you. This is for you. Okay. It doesn't matter if you already have a successful business. This is for you. It does not matter because I'll show you how to add millions of dollars in revenue per year, even if you already have a successful business, or how to maintain your revenue with half the work required using webinars. In fact, I've seen people's sales go up as much as 10 times, 1,000% from just one of the tactics that I'm going to be showing here today. But you're going to need to stick around to the very end to hear that one, because I'm not going to be teaching that tactic until the very end of this webinar. I'm saving the best for last, okay? So it also doesn't matter if you have a struggling business right now, okay? Doesn't matter if you have a struggling business, because you'll learn how to implement high converting webinars to sell more products and get more clients. And suddenly you won't have a struggling business anymore. And you'll be able to raise your prices too, because when your marketing is better, you can charge more. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you have no business at all and you're just somebody who's full-time employed somewhere. Because I've done over $1 million in sales with webinars, selling other people's products and using other people's leads. Didn't even need any of my own. Didn't need a product of my own. Didn't need an email list of my own or an audience of my own to be able to do that. It doesn't matter what your market is. Okay. People ask me stuff all the time like, my business sells rocket parts to NASA. Will webinars work for me? And the answer is yes. So don't come at me with questions of like, will this work in my market and my niche? The answer is an emphatic yes. All right. The answer is yes, this will work on my market, in your market. All right. So this is for you. Let me prove some of this with some mind-blowing facts that you're in the right place and that this is for you. Mind-blowing fact number one. More than half the people that have shown up to my webinars in the last year had no idea who I was prior to showing up. That's probably true to a lot of people that are here watching this right now. You had no idea who I was coming onto this today, right? And that's what a lot of people would call a cold lead. That means the majority of my millions in sales come from people that didn't even know me. They sat through a 90-minute webinar, which is the first time that they'd ever even heard of me. And at the end, gave me, in some cases, $3,500 or more. When you can convert cold leads, you have a license to print money. Look at it like this. If you run Facebook ads, it can cost anywhere from between $5 to $20 on average for someone to give you their email address. And I've told you that my webinars average over $100 per email I collect. I don't need to do the math for you there, do I? If you spend 20 bucks and you get 100 back, it's pretty profitable. Now, this isn't infinitely scalable. I'm not trying to say that. I can't sell dog training to someone that doesn't have a dog, right? So there are limits to this. But I've been able to get into the millions of dollars in sales with a single webinar before even hitting resistance points. So as long as I'm getting in front of the right audience, I can keep my conversions very high with what I'm going to show you here today. So stick around to learn how. All right. Mind-blowing fact number two. On over half of those webinars I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, I wasn't even on the webinar. I didn't even give the presentation. Someone else did. Now, this might take you a moment to process, and that's why I said it's mind-blowing. So follow me here. All those webinars were selling my programs, but I had someone else do the presentation on many of them. That's right. The systems and tactics that I'm going to present today are so good, you don't even need to host the webinar yourself to make sales. You can have someone else do it. In fact, sometimes you're better off having someone else do it. That's because advocating on someone else's behalf and selling their offer increases audience's trust in that offer. So there's one of the first pro tips that I have been able to give you today when it comes to webinars. Mind-blowing fact number three. In the last 10 months, I've sold over $700,000 with webinars. So $700,000 of the millions that I've made over the last 10 months. I did it where I had no list, no product of my own, and spent $0 on advertising, which might seem completely impossible. Like, it doesn't make sense. How can you make sales if you had no list and no product and you didn't spend anything on advertising, right? But it happened. It did happen. And how it happened is people paid me large sums of money to do webinars for them. Okay, they emailed their lists and they let me sell their own products and paid me a handsome commission to do so. So you can make money with webinars and not even have a list, as long as you know how to structure and write a webinar that is good and how to do it the right way. Okay, let's review some webinar facts, some very true facts as I've been able to discover over the years. You don't need a lot of money, or you don't need a lot of leads to make a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money either. In fact, you don't even need leads at all if you perform webinars for other people. This will work in any type of business. This will work in any market. You Don't need to be an authority figure or an expert on the topic either. You just have to follow the blueprint. Okay, so are you guys ready to learn how to craft a high converting webinar? All right. Can I get a little Marcella, Melanie, Simone, Talmer, Jesse, Deb, Patricia? Yeah, let's do it. All right. Menders, David. Yeah, I'm seeing some yeses in there. I love that feedback because it helps me go. All right. Yeah, all right. Let's do it. So first up, let's get really clear on the definition of a webinar. Make sure that we're all talking about the same thing we can agree on, right? So actually, dictionary.com has a pretty good definition. A seminar or other presentation that takes place on the internet, allowing participants in different locations to see and hear the presenter ask questions and sometimes answer polls. Okay, I agree with that definition. Now, why webinars? Why do we choose that format? Why should you choose that format? Why do I choose that format? There are two primary reasons. One is effectiveness, and two is efficiency. Let's talk about effectiveness first. The easiest way to explain this is if you can get someone to come to a live webinar and then stay the whole time, they heard everything that you said in the order that you intended for them to hear it. So let's say 40 minutes into your webinar, you make an offer of some sort for your product or service. Well, the people watching just got 40 minutes of information that supports the decision to buy your offer. And if you provided them that information in the correct order, the likelihood that they buy your offer goes up exponentially. Okay. And another huge reason that webinars are effective is that you can interact with the audience. People can ask you questions, get clarity on what you are teaching or selling, and you can crush objections for people in real time. We're going to do that on this webinar today. At the very end, I'm going to take as much time as you guys want to give, as much time as I can devote to answering all of your questions. Okay. Number two, the top reason for why webinars have worked so well for me and work so well for others is because they are incredibly efficient. Okay, so what you're looking at right now, what's on screen is something called a sales funnel. It's a complicated puzzle, basically, many people use, where after someone gives you their email address, that person goes through all these different steps in this funnel, all if this then that stuff before they eventually an offer is made to them to buy something. And sales funnels work. I'm not saying that they don't. They absolutely do work, but they are complicated and they are a lot of work to set up and set up well. And it takes a lot of tech to be able to set up a complicated sales funnel to be very effective. Well, a webinar is something that is much, much simpler. And it is the fastest way to make money that I've found, because you can get someone's email address and get them on a webinar, and that's it. That's all you have to do. You get their email address and get them to show up for a webinar. That's the entire process. The entire process is 2 steps. So it is something that is much simpler. It's the fastest way to go from zero to making money. Did you know that Jeff Bezos famously was able to fit the Amazon business model onto a napkin, right? Well, I go even smaller than that. You got to be able to fit your business model on a Post-it note. More complicated than that, and I don't really like it. That's my whole business model right there. Very simple. I actually wrote this down and had a bunch of extra room because I could fit it so well onto that Post-it note. So I tried to draw a $100 bill, and you can see how that turned out. So I guess I can say that you don't need to have good handwriting or be an artist to be successful with webinars either. All right, now let's go over the structure of a $1 million webinar. A webinar you could write and make $1 million. It all starts with the hook. So let's begin there. How you start a webinar is very important. By the way, have you noticed that I have not introduced myself yet? Like, for real. Like, you can tell me in chat, has anyone noticed that? I've been talking for like 10 minutes and I haven't formally introduced myself. I told you my name, but I haven't really shared much about who I am or what I do. That was actually very intentional. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make with their webinars is they start it by introducing themselves. And literally, in the first 30 seconds of those webinars where people do that, they have already ruined it irredeemably. Okay. Do not start your webinars by introducing yourself. People do not care who you are until you have given them a reason to care. a reason to be interested in you, a reason to listen to you. Okay. And that's why you should start your webinar not with an introduction, a self-serving introduction, instead with an engaging hook, a really good, exciting, engaging hook. Let's look at the official definition of a hook. All right. A narrative hook, or just a hook, is a literary technique in the opening of a story that hooks the reader's attention so they will keep on reading. The opening may consist of several paragraphs for a short story or several pages for a novel, but ideally it is the opening sentence in the book. Okay, so you want your webinar to start with a bang, something that lets the viewer know that they're in the right place and makes them want to keep watching and stay to the end. Would you agree that I started this webinar in a really engaging and an exciting way? Now, I don't have time to teach you how to write a great hook, right? But I can tell you the most important elements. It has to be interesting, and it has to generate curiosity. Basically, it can't be boring, and it has to trigger curiosity so they keep watching or keep reading, because we humans naturally want to satisfy our curiosity. And that's important because you need the viewer or reader to make it to the end, because what's at the end? Your offer, right? So hooks can be short, just a few sentences, or they can be long, multiple paragraphs. It doesn't matter how long, it just matters how good it is. Okay. Now, here's a bonus tip. Within your hook, you should also do something called a hook to the end, which directly gives people a compelling reason to watch all the way to the end. Because if they don't make it to the end, they don't see your what? Your offer. Like literally, you should say during the hook section, you should say, at the end of this webinar, I will, right? And then give some sort of compelling reason that they should stay till the end of the webinar. And some may have noticed that I have already done this in this opening. I've done it multiple times actually already, right? Now, another bonus tip. Ideally, your hook does a really good job of getting the audience initially excited, but how do you keep their excitement for, 30 to 90 minutes? Well, you do this with something that I call the open loop, closed loop process. It can be simply explained as every time you satisfy the curiosity of one thing, you have to simultaneously create curiosity for a new thing. Think about it like Netflix, okay? Do you want to know why those shows are so bingeable? And you can sit down and watch 8 episodes of something in one day and wonder how the heck that happened. Well, it's because they design every episode with a cliffhanger. You just have to see what happens, right? So you watch the next episode, and to satisfy that curiosity. And that episode resolves that cliffhanger, but then it makes a new one, right? And so it's this vicious, infinite cycle. And that's how you lose 8 hours watching Stranger Things on a Sunday afternoon. So, all right, you guys following me? You with me so far? Are you tracking with all this, right? Yeah, okay. I learned. So, have I earned the right to introduce myself yet? It's like, are we there yet? Do I feel like Diane, Andrew, Ian, Kimberly? Tess says almost. All right, I'll take it. Victoria, Deb, yeah. Who the hell are you? How do you know? Yeah. All right. So let's do it then. That's a heck of a segue, right? So as you know by now, probably, my name is Dylan Frost. 9 years ago, I was working a full-time job doing printer repair at a local community college. My salary was $40,000 a year. Since then, I've sold over $50 million of products and services online, all kinds of different products, physical products, software, online courses, coaching, consulting, in-person events, and much more. And these days, I'm kind of regarded as a webinar master. I've sold millions of dollars of my own products with webinars. I've sold millions of dollars of other people's products as an affiliate using webinars. And I've written webinars for other people to perform that have gone on to do millions of dollars in sales. But the truth is, I'm not a webinar master. I'm just good at following instructions. Jason Fladlien is the GOAT of webinars. So for those of you that don't know what GOAT means, GOAT stands for greatest of all time, the greatest of all time. He's the Michael Jordan of webinars. He's the Wayne Gretzky of webinars. Jason exploded onto the scene back in 2015 by writing a webinar for an online course called Amazing Selling Machine. He was relatively unknown at the time. And the next thing I'm going to tell you is so crazy, it's hard to even explain. Amazing Selling Machine was not Jason's course. He was merely promoting it as an affiliate. And Jason's webinar was converting so insanely highly, word got out to all the other people that were promoting that course. Those affiliates realized it would be more profitable to send their traffic to Jason's webinar and split commissions with him than it was to promote the course directly. Eventually, hundreds of people chose to promote Jason's webinar. Jason's webinar did $9 million in sales over the course of a week. Basically, he wrote a webinar so good that it went viral. Okay? And Jason has repeated that success over and over again. In fact, over the last couple of years alone, webinars that Jason either wrote, performed, or consulted on have done over $100 million in sales. Last year, Jason led the biggest internet marketing launch in history. It did $57.9 million in sales in 226 days. He's done webinars for the GOAT, the greatest of all time, for personal development, Tony Robbins. He's consulted for the GOAT of interviews, the legendary Larry King. He is the most quoted expert on the topic of webinars by the GOAT of funnels, Russell Brunson. The GOAT of networking, Joe Polish, called him one of the top 5 living marketers on the planet. And Jeff Walker, who sent you to this very webinar today, had this to say. He said, I've bought more products from Jason than any other marketer. Those are big words coming from Jeff Walker, who is the GOAT of launches. See, all these people are at the pinnacle of their field, and they all seek Jason's wisdom. Jason has consulted on the top webinar for the last 3 years in a row, including this year. He consulted for Alex Hormozi's webinar that had over 500,000 live attendees. Alex literally said, you changed my life, the single best training I've seen to date on offer creation and persuasion, talking about Jason. Now, even if you've never heard of him before, now you know. Jason is undeniably the webinar GOAT. He's your favorite marketer's favorite marketer. And naturally, because he's so good at what he does, the opportunity to learn from him is rare and it's expensive. And I've been one of the lucky few to learn from Jason Fladlien. And I've used his webinar writing process to make millions. I mean, pretty much anyone that puts into practice his method makes a ton of money. You came to this webinar thinking I was the expert, but nope, I'm merely a student. Now, I've got something really cool to show you. 2 weeks ago, I was texting Jason, and I sent him this. It's a picture of his webinar structure laid out step by step. Now, I've got it blurred out because it's actually not mine to share with you, okay? That wouldn't be fair to Jason. But I asked him, do you think you'd still teach this structure? Or would you update it when it comes to how he teaches how to write these incredibly high converting webinars? And Jason says, updated. I have a better model these days. It's simpler too. I've refined it based on all the successful webinars I've seen come out of my last program. Since I've had hundreds of winning webinars from clients based on the structure above, I've seen how to make it even more effective, seeing how my clients use it. Keep in mind that structure you shared is 6 years old. And I say, okay. Great. Is that written down anywhere or a visual format I can look over? I was getting really excited. And here's the really important part. Jason says no. He says because he's never shared this new structure before. It's brand new, his latest innovation. And I was really excited. Imagine the power of being the first to market with this from one of the greatest living marketers in the world, right? And a couple days pass, and Jason doesn't send me that. He said he was going to send it, and then he doesn't. And so you can see on the time. So I bumped him. And said, "Hey, were you able to put this together any rough format? You can share. It's fine." I was excited, so I bumped him to try to get that from him, and then boom, I got it. Now, once again, this isn't mine to share. I'm very lucky to have it, right? And this is incredibly recent. So this is only a couple weeks ago. I'm very lucky to have it. I believe I'm the only person in the world who actually has this right now. It's that new. The structure that you're looking at is that new. But I did get permission not to share the whole thing, but I get permission to share with you 5 of the 14 steps. And those are what we're going to cover right now. But I promise you, if all you do is make sure that these 5 steps are in your webinars, you'll massively increase your profits, even just with this partial system. All right. Even with just the partial system. Okay. So the first one is hook. And I already taught you that one, right? Most people start webinars by introducing themselves. That is usually wrong to do. Nope. You should introduce yourself a little later in the process after you've built up some excitement and connection with the audience. And it comes time to introduce yourself. You need to make sure you do it properly, right? Then we've got what Jason lists as step number 5, right? That is your actual introduction. You do it a little bit later in the process. The most important part of introducing yourself is that it should establish authority. And you do this by showing and telling. You do this by using results, positioning, celebrity, and testimonials or case studies, all that stuff. Any proof you have that you are someone worth listening to. But I know a lot of you are thinking on that subject, you're thinking, yeah, that's great that Jason has worked with Larry King and Tony Robbins, but I don't have anything like that. I don't even have testimonials or case studies or anything, and that's fine. There are many ways that you can establish authority while having very little of your own. One of them is by borrowing authority, right? Which, if you've noticed, is exactly what I've been doing in my intro. You want to establish yourself as an expert and prove that with results of some kind. Results like the ones here in this screenshot I took directly of a webinar that was hosted by Jason Fladlin. In it, he is showing a text message that he got from a client. And the client is thanking Jason for helping him make $452,000 in 2 hours. Now, this is an example of showing authority, building proof. And not just telling, but also showing. But there's something else really cool that he's doing on this slide. He's actually fostering mystery and intrigue and curiosity too. He's combined a couple different mental triggers into one thing. Because he said in it, it says the results ? Would you like to know exactly how we did it, right? So he's opening a loop in that. So he's showing results. He's showing a testimonial, but he's also using that testimonial to create intrigue and to open a loop, always opening a loop, closing a loop, always opening loops and closing loops. So he's even using that to open a loop, which we talked about earlier, even when he shows you proof elements, even when he's showing testimonials, right? Now, a really good introduction also should preemptively handle objections. This is really important. You should really focus on this, write down this part, right? And this part isn't just specific to your intro either. It should be happening really throughout your webinars, but it definitely needs to happen here too. So let me give you a piece of personal opinion real quick, and I'll explain it like this. If I present to you a really expensive product or service and I ask you to buy it, you're going to come up with a bunch of reasons and excuses for why you shouldn't, right? Those are called objections. But if someone is watching my webinar, and in my webinar, I already addressed all the possible objections that person could have, then by the time we make it to the end of the webinar and I make the offer, the only logical conclusion left is to buy my product because they have no reason not to. I've already handled all of their objections, right? You see, it's a lot harder to address objections after you've made an offer because now the person is resisting. You can still do it. It's just harder. But before you make the offer, there's little to no resistance because people aren't thinking about what it costs. So you can set up the sale so much easier by addressing objections in advance, whether directly or subconsciously. And that's the power of webinars right there. And that's something that you have to think about as you're writing it, you have to think about objections the whole time. What objections could people have? And how am I solving them with the things that I'm sharing and the content that I'm sharing preemptively, right? So you have to be doing that as you're writing your webinars for your webinars to be effective. And lastly, for elements of an intro, a great introduction should foster hope. And here I've pulled out what might be Jason Fladlin's most famous slide of all time, and it's probably his most plagiarized slide of all time. I can't tell you how many people I have seen copy this almost word for word from him. And it is, in our small amount of time together, my goal is to make a big impact in the following ways: to give you confidence where there was once uncertainty, clarity where there was once confusion, and to unlock within you the true potential you have to make your dent in the universe. All right, so this is good stuff, right? You guys with me? You see how you could do this? Yeah, make sure you're still here. Teresa, Diane, Curtis, Talmer, Connie, Victoria. Yeah, another Corey, Patricia, MJ. Yeah, loving it. Great. Yeah, I'm getting the thumbs up. Yeah, all right, guys. Okay. I just want to make sure you're still with me. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about commitment, which is step 8 in Jason's webinar blueprint. All right. A lot of webinar presenters, they talk at their audience. They don't include the audience in their conversation. So what we want to do, right, is get the audience to agree to something that if they do the thing, or if they agree to the thing, it will make them way more likely to buy what you're selling. This is critical. This is critical. Now, this is a tactic that is valuable to use multiple times throughout a webinar, but it really needs to happen in this specific section as you're getting ready to head into the offer. An example of this, some examples of this are one would be like, if I show you this, will you then do that, right? Or another commitment frame. Another commitment frame is if I showed you how to X, could you then accomplish Y? That's one of the simplest commitment frames that you can use. That's an example of a commitment frame, a question that you can ask the audience, something that you can bring up that if they answer, it's leading them towards acknowledging that whatever your offer is would help and support them and be able to provide them the transformation, right? The transformation that is going to benefit them, right? More or less, you're getting people to acknowledge logically that your offer would create positive change in their life and would be valuable, would be worth the money, etc., right? And they don't even realize that this is happening because the mind will work to achieve what it says it will achieve. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If somebody says, yes, I am willing to do this, and then you show them how to do that, then they will open up to your offer. Does that make sense to everybody, right? Here's one that everyone can appreciate. If you clean your room, then we'll go to the park, right? That's a commitment frame, actually, and we use it with our kids. If you clean your room, then we'll go to the park. But it works with kids. It actually works even better on adults, turns out, right? Now, these types of commitment frames, it's great if you're just saying them or just asking the questions, right? It's even better if you're encouraging response in the chat for the questions. If you're reading the answers off and acknowledging as many people as you can by name. Here's another pro tip. Acknowledging people by name during a webinar or live presentation of any kind tremendously increases conversions of that person. So that's important on small webinars with small audiences, especially, right? And ain't that right? You know, Valerie and Rhonda and Teresa and Joe and Karen and Mary and Ian, right? And Megan. Yeah. Isn't that right? So commitment is about getting the viewer into the conversation with carefully crafted questions and commitment frameworks, having them commit to making a change in their life, okay? And that brings us straight into the transition part, which goes hand in hand with commitment, right? The commitment and transition really need to blend and play off each other. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a second. But first, let's get real clear on transitions. The transition is one of the most important parts of a webinar. It's also the part most people are scared of, or the most amount of people are scared of. If you are scared to sell, if you are scared to sell, then your audience will be scared to buy. I'm going to repeat that one because it's important for you to remember. If you are scared to sell, then your audience will be scared to buy. Okay? But I've got a solution for you to make this less scary, to give you absolute confidence. Because going from teaching on a subject to then saying, "Hey, give me your money, buy my stuff," that's really awkward. So we just don't do it. That's just not what we do. Okay? Instead, we set it up so that the audience is literally asking you, or even sometimes begging you to be sold. Wouldn't it be a lot easier for you if the audience was literally asking you to make the pitch, right? Wouldn't it make you more comfortable if instead of you transitioning to the pitch yourself, that the audience, it was really like their idea and they asked you to do it instead? Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And so how do we do this? That sounds like a great idea in theory. How do we do that? Well, how you do it is through you blend commitment and transition into this seamless thing where people are literally asking you to hear the offer. I'm going to teach it by doing. Actually, I'm going to do it with like a real example that you're going to be able to follow along with, right? And I'll pause every now and then as I'm doing it for real and talk about what I'm doing, like called breaking the fourth wall. I'm going to do one of these transitions and break the fourth wall every now and then to talk you through it, what I'm doing, why I'm doing that, why I said these things, right? So if you've ever watched a movie where they break the fourth wall, it's going to be like that, okay? Well, actually, before I jump into it, I'm going to let you know that I'm already breaking the fourth wall before I even start. First, just want to, I usually like to start these transitions with a recap of what has been taught, but more importantly, a restatement of the benefits and transformations that you taught, and that what those things will create for the viewer if they do what you taught. Okay, so it would look like this. Hey, everybody. So far today, we've learned the following. You learned why webinars are so incredibly effective for generating sales when done correctly, which is because if someone shows up to watch you live, you can walk them through all the steps of psychological influence in the best possible order and get a chance to interact with people directly to crush objections and close more sales. Now, I, of course, learned this from Jason Fladlien, the GOAT, the greatest of all time for webinar creation and hosting, and I use his exact step-by-step process. And you've learned that you don't need a lot of leads to make a lot of money with effective webinars. You also learned why webinars are efficient, and they are efficient because they are simple. You don't need complex marketing. All you really need to do is to get people to watch your webinar. That's it. Very simple. In fact, when I switched to primarily doing webinars for my coaching and consulting business, I reduced the amount of time that I had to work by more than half due to the simplicity. I also proved that anyone can do webinars. I proved you can do this without experience, without being an expert or an authority figure in a field. You can do this even if you don't have leads of your own. Literally anyone can make money with webinars. All you got to do is follow the proven process for writing them. I taught you who the GOAT of webinars is, Jason Fladlien. So you can start following him and keeping up with him to learn from watching him yourself, just like I did. You learn the best way to open a webinar, which is to use a powerful hook. And I also taught you the hook to the end technique and the open loop, closed loop technique that you can instantly add to your webinars to keep people watching all the way through to the end to significantly increase your sales and profits. And even though I told you not to start a webinar by introducing yourself, I did show you when to do an introduction, how to do it properly, including how to do it even if you have no authority or credibility yourself by borrowing someone else's. Right now, I am teaching you in real time via demonstration how to begin transitioning to your offer. See, the goal of a webinar is to create a behavioral change in the audience and make an offer that is consistent with that new behavior. Basically, you have to make the viewer believe it is possible for them if they do it, right? And to do this, you must appeal to the viewer both emotionally and logically, okay? Like this. I have a few questions for you, right? Jason Fladlien is responsible for $500 million in sales with webinars. Now, this $500 million in sales that Jason has done is across over 100 unique webinars that are selling 100 unique offers across a variety of niches, from personal development to software to e-commerce. Okay. And the majority of products he has sold with webinars aren't even his. He just wrote the webinar to sell them. They're someone else's products. He's repeated this webinar success over and over and over again systematically. The offer or niche hasn't mattered, because that doesn't matter for the sales system to work, right? People like me have copied that system and also made millions. So my question for you is Jason lucky or good? Based with all that information, the $500 million that he's been able to do across tons of different niches with tons of different webinars, is he lucky or good? Answer in chat. I want to see. I'm seeing the answers. Is he lucky or good? It can only be good or both, but you can't. It's hard to be lucky without being good. We'll say that. It's hard to be lucky without being good, right? He's good, folks. He's good. He hasn't accidentally done $500 million, $500 million in sales with webinars across 100 different unique offers, most of which weren't even his, right? See, there's the logical portion of it, right? There's the logical portion of it. We all just came to the logical conclusion with that example that Jason's webinar system works, that it isn't a fluke. It can't possibly be a fluke for it to work so many times in so many different markets for so many different products over such a long period of time. 15 years he's been doing this, right? So we all agree that it works. Now, and we agree that it works because other people are able to use it. Even fools like me with my thick accent can pull it off, right? Now, since we agree that it works, I have to make you believe it will work for you. And this is where the emotional part comes into play. See, we're human beings. We aren't like Spock from Star Trek. We don't operate solely off logic, right? And I've already told you a million times with a million examples throughout this webinar that this works in any niche. It doesn't matter what level of expert you are. You don't need a lot of leads. You don't even need leads at all, right? You don't even need a product. You can make webinars to sell other people's products. But some of you are still resistant to the idea that it could work for you because you're thinking things like, I'm not ready. I don't have enough experience. And I'm not good enough. These are objections. These are the types of objections that people bring up or create for themselves. Well, these are actually things called limiting beliefs, and limiting beliefs are toxic. Limiting beliefs prevent us from achieving success in our careers and in our lives, and they are negative self-perceptions that live in our conscious or subconscious, rooted in past experiences or comments from other people, or values and beliefs of our family members and friends, and even messages from the media that get pushed onto us, right? But limiting beliefs, by their nature, are largely illogical. And I can prove it to you. But not only that, I can give you a simple tool right now that will enable you to cut through those limiting beliefs in your life and see what you are really capable of, instead of allowing yourself to be deluded by letting other people determine your worth. If it doesn't have a date, then it's just doubt. If it doesn't have a date, then you're just creating doubt. If it doesn't have a date, it's a dream. Those are my two tools. Let me show you how to use those, right? But what this tool is, it's a way to overcome and see through your own illogical, irrational, limiting beliefs. And I'll show it to you, right? So let's go back and look at those. Let's look at those objections that we created for ourselves, these limiting beliefs that some people create for themselves. I'm not ready, right? Is what you're thinking, right? Okay. Well, then when will you be ready? That's what you can ask yourself. All right, when will I be ready? Like literally a specific date. What is the specific date that I'll be ready? And if you can't answer that question of when you'll be ready, what's the specific date? You know, like December 5th, 2023. If you can't put an exact date on it, then what you're likely doing is just making an excuse, right? Let's look at the other one. I don't have enough experience. Okay. Well, when will you have enough experience? What day will you have enough experience, right? What is the specific day that you'll have enough experience? I'm not good enough. All right. What date will you be good enough? And when I have these creep into my own mind, I ask myself that question. All right. What's the date that I'll be good enough? What's the date that I'll have everything that I need? Right. And it starts to make me see I'm just using these objections as excuses not to move forward, or I'm holding myself back with those limiting beliefs. And when you do this, you realize that the only thing that's stopping you from moving forward and from accomplishing greatness really is you. Every time it's just you. Limiting beliefs are the fallacy, right? The reality is you're just one webinar away. That's the reality from doing what you want when you want it, not doing what you have to just to get by, from proving to yourself and others what you are truly capable of, from traveling the world, having peace of mind, from living life on your terms. And the only thing standing between you and that is knowing these 14 steps in total and in order. And these 14 steps are the holy grail of marketing, an easy to follow treasure map to finally nailing it and getting to the personal and financial success that you were always capable of. You just didn't know what the steps were before, but now you do. So the $1 million question is, what would it be worth to learn the 14 steps to make webinars that can earn you hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars, right? It would be worth everything, right? Hell, I've used it to make over $10 million in just the last 2 years. Me. All right, everyone. So I'm going to step away for this for a second to break the fourth wall. All right. So I've went through that. It's like an example of setting up a transition, going through a transition to set up an offer, right? I'm going to break the fourth wall and I'm going to teach a little bit here. So you think you're seeing what's happening there? Like, right. You're still with me, right? You're seeing what was going on there, right? So I started, as I mentioned, I used a recap to quickly reiterate all the value and the benefits of what we've been teaching today. And then I used commitment frames and questions to smash through logical and emotional objections, right? The logical objection that we went through was talking about, is Jason lucky or good for him to have so much success across so many niches and so many products that are his, products that aren't. It couldn't have been all luck. He has to actually his process has to actually work. Other people can use his process, like me, and it worked for them, right? So the process works. We all agree the process. That's the logical part of it. And then we address the illogical, the irrational beliefs, the emotional beliefs, the objections, the irrational objections that we create about why we can't succeed or why we can't do this. And I address the emotional side of it. Actually, yes, you can. The only thing that's stopping you is you, right? So we all now I've addressed both sides of that argument that for the offer, in support of the offer, right? And then I used a little bit of mystery and intrigue. I revealed that this is possible, and that it's possible for you to learn all 14 steps. And maybe some ears perked up out there, where it's just like, it is possible. So you're telling me I can know what all 14 of those steps were in that Jason had sent to you the other day, right? So now I'm going to start the offer. Right? But remember, this is still a very meta webinar. It's a webinar that's, as it's trying to sell you something, it's telling you how it's selling you something, right? So don't leave, because the offer will also be an effective demonstration on how to reveal offers, right? So we're in the final stages of the transition. And instead of a bunch of resistance due to an awkward transition, there is now anticipation. I've built anticipation to hear the offer, and I'll prove it. Do you want to see the offer now? Now that I have said all that, right? Do you want to see the offer that I'm talking about that I've set up? Now, Matthew, yes. Assad, yes. Megan, yes. Mark, yes. Adam, Jenny, Barbara, curious, yes. Said curious. Yeah, there we go. I got a duh in there. Elsie, Barbara, Joe, Christian, Amber, Andrew, Andrea, never know which. Manuela, yeah. Okay, cool. So here it goes. I have what may very well be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reveal to you today. Jason Fladlien has not led a class to teach his webinar writing system in over 6 years. And even then, it was a very small, very exclusive class. About 30 people were in the room, I think, when he taught it the last time, and it was a long time ago. That's it. Now, since then, the only way you could work with Jason To directly learn his webinar system in full and in depth was to book him for a private consulting day. And he charges $30,000 a day for that, right? Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know that's how expensive it is to learn this system. Ask me how I know, right? But on October 24th and 25th in Valencia, California, Jason, the GOAT, the greatest of all time at this, will be sharing his entire, never before taught, updated version of his webinar system, live and in person to another select small group of people. And you can be one of those lucky few people for only $10,000. An unbelievable, unconscionable opportunity and value. Trust me, I know, because it cost me a whole lot more than that to learn from Jason. So I know better than anyone what this is worth and how inconsequential that price is to what you can get from it. An opportunity like this is incredibly rare, and you're lucky to even have that chance. But that's actually not the offer that I want to talk to you about today. At least, not exactly. Starting today through Thursday, October the 5th, you can free buy the recordings of that $10,000 per ticket event that he's going to be holding in California, where it'll be the first time that he has taught live his webinar strategies in 6 years. And he's going to do it. You're going to be able to pre-buy those recordings for only $997. That's it. One payment of $997. You can sign up right now at goatwebinars.com/Jeff. Yes, you are reading this correctly. You get all the same information, tactics, and techniques as the people like me who will be there that are paying $10,000, but you can get it at 1/10 of the price, right? And I want, so you are literally, you are going to have for 2 days here, you have the opportunity to buy a $10,000 training that hasn't even happened yet. You're not even buying something in the past. You're going to have the opportunity to buy a $10,000 training that people pay $10,000 a ticket for. You're going to be able to get it for $997. All right. I want to strongly stress the fact that this is an incredibly limited time offer. It's not a public offer. It is a private offer. And right now, this offer is only being made to followers of Jeff Walker. If you're watching this live broadcast right now, or you're watching the replay, you saw it only because Jeff sent you here. Jeff is a very good friend of mine and a very good friend of Jason's. So it makes the exclusivity of this offer off the charts. The value was already insane, right? To get to learn, the opportunity to learn from Jason Fladlien in a small room of people and learn his system that so few people have had the access to and the knowledge of. But the exclusivity of this makes it even more insane, right? Because the only people that are getting offered this are people that have been sent by Jeff Walker. So that go.com/Jeff. You'll get access to those event recordings on November the 6th. But this wouldn't be a good webinar if I didn't also come prepared with an incredible stack of bonuses, because you see, it's actually part of Jason's 14-step process. Jason actually has a motto. He says, I sell products that are more expensive to not buy. I include bonuses so good you'd be an idiot not to buy my offers, right? That comes directly from Jason. And so I think that now, since we're going to go over the bonuses that also come included with this offer, that we should kind of do it. Usually this is a teaching moment, so you can kind of understand this as well, right? So we're going to break the fourth wall again, right, as I get into these bonuses. A bonus is pointless if it does not crush an objection. A killer offer should have a bonus for every possible major objection to your offer. When you do this, you get to talk about each bonus individually, which means you get to crush each objection individually. And you're also adding value to your offer when you present bonuses in this way. And they should literally be assigned a value, a monetary value if possible, that helps to further anchor the great value of the offer. So let's go through them, okay? And you'll see me do it. Anyone who buys the $10,000 ticket to join, I'll be there too, to go to Valencia, California. And anyone who pre-orders the masterclass recordings for $9.97 will both get this bonus package. So this bonus package I'm about to share with you, you will get it if you go in person. You will get it if you just pre-buy those recordings. The 7 main amazing bonuses I'm going to share with you are, number 1, the webinar swipe motherload. The replays to Jason's incredibly successful webinars don't exist anywhere on the internet publicly. You can't find them. You can't buy them, right? Which makes this bonus really special. With this bonus, you get instant access as soon as you purchase today to the recordings of Jason's top webinars over the years, and you're also going to be getting the emails that he sent during those promotions and slide decks and the transcripts of many of those, right? Think about this for a second. You'll know everything he said. You'll see all his slides. You'll know every email that he sent during a multi-million-dollar promotion, right? However you use these, they're going to be worth their weight in gold. I'm crushing several objections with this bonus too, right? One of them is that people like training, but they love templates because that makes things even easier because you can just plug and play. You can just use something that has worked, that has been proven to work, and then you can just replace the market with your stuff and the terminology with your stuff. And that's effectively what this is. People love to be able to see more examples of webinars in all kinds of different markets and niches. And well, that's what will be done here. That's what you'll be able to see. Jason has done a variety of markets and niches. You'll get to see that. And another big objection being crushed here is it's immediately delivered content. The replays, if you decide to buy the replays for this event, it's a few weeks away. So this is an opportunity to get content right now. It's another thing that I'm crushing and another value I'm able to add because you'll get this immediately as soon as you order. The replays won't be delivered until November 6th after the event, but I can give you these bonuses right now for buying right now. So super valuable stuff that you can be using immediately to start making money in your business. Bonus number 2, the biggest internet marketing product launch in history. Yes, Jason is responsible for that. Last year, Jason led the biggest internet marketing launch in history. It did $57.9 million in sales in 226 days. That launch generated $232 per lead. Well, he recently did a 2-hour breakdown of how his team executed this record-breaking launch. We'll send you this immediately upon your purchase. You'll be able to take these insights and immediately put them into action to start improving your sales. You can do that at goatwebinars.com/Jeff. goatwebinars.com/Jeff. Bonus number 3. Not only has Jason, I'm seeing people telling me here in the chat that they've purchased, they've not even saw the bonuses yet. People are telling me here in chat they're not even waited to see what all these bonuses are. So that must mean I'm probably doing an okay job, that the structure that I have learned from Jason here is doing a pretty good job of selling. I just wanted to stop and make that point really quick. Bonus number 3. Not only has Jason perfected the webinar presentation, but he's also perfected how to get people to show up to the webinar and how to get tons of sales out of the replay, right? He routinely gets webinar show up rates of 40%, 50%, and routinely closes better than 13% of live webinar attendees on sales of high-priced offers. Imagine that. Imagine you're selling a $2,000 or $3,000 product and closing 13% of the people that show up live. He often generates 50% of his sales for a promotion from the replay of a webinar, over 50%, right? A lot of people come to me, they have trouble with the replays, get no sales out of the replays, right? And this is his system. That's one of the most valuable things you can learn from him, is how to do a replay correctly that adds tons and tons of sales, because so many people are doing that wrong. So in this training, that you'll also get instant access to as soon as you purchase, you will learn these tactics that you can apply immediately to whatever type of marketing that you're doing that will get you results, fast and instant results. Bonus number 4. Jason recently held a live training session for a $25,000 mastermind where he taught 29 webinar techniques that are responsible for millions of dollars in sales, not including his clients or student results, but millions and millions of dollars in sales across all kinds of niches, right? Techniques you can easily apply in your webinars and other marketing strategies today. Simple, but powerful. or just one used the right way can be ridiculously profitable. With these, you'll be able to make your campaigns into winners. The bonus is available immediately upon your investment in GoToWebinars. Another instant access training while you wait for this unbelievable event to happen where Jason is going to reveal for the first time his new updated 14-step process for killer webinars, right? All right, bonus number 5. Just a few weeks ago, Jason hosted a webinar to a very small test list of people. This is incredibly new. I've seen this webinar. I watched it. It was really just a couple weeks ago, and the results were incredible. Jason believes he believes that the webinar that he just wrote is the best webinar that he's ever done in terms of technique. He believes it's the best webinar he's ever wrote. He just did it a couple weeks ago. You will be able, not only will you get instant access to that webinar, you'll be able to watch that webinar. Jason actually recorded a training video going over that webinar, going through the many steps and the many phases of it and what he did so that you can understand and you can replicate something like it. And he's also providing the swipes of the emails that he sent during that campaign, and you'll have the transcript from that webinar. You will learn a ton from watching this. Imagine what Jason, who has done $500 million in sales, said, I just wrote the best webinar I've ever written. And he's going to show you, he's going to walk you through step by step how he did it, what he was doing, when and where, so that you can replicate it. I like, if you don't think that's valuable, if you can't see how that you could use that, then I'm just not entirely sure what you're doing, like what your plans are for your business. Then if you can't make use of that, someone who has had so much results and success, right? Bonus number 6. On October 13th, Jason will lead a live call on Zoom to prepare you for the 2-day masterclass and make sure you get the most out of it. You can attend this call whether you plan to attend in person or view the replays. That live session will be on October 13th. The replay will be made with that live call with Jason, that live opportunity to talk with Jason, work with Jason. That'll be made 48 hours after that live session on the 13th takes place. So you'll get a chance to do some pre-work with Jason and get prepared for this masterclass that is happening at the end of the month. And then bonus number 7 is going to be one I'm throwing in. It's going to be how to recruit affiliates. So affiliates are the fastest and easiest way to scale your sales, or really even to start your sales if you've never had a sale before, because that's how I got started, was with affiliates. My first sales ever came from affiliates. And it enables you to tap into thousands of leads without spending a dime of money up front. Let's just think about this webinar. Where did the leads from this webinar that I'm hosting right now come from? They came from Jeff Walker. That's who sent them. So they weren't my leads, right? Over the years, I've recruited a staggering 2,905 affiliates to promote my online programs. In fact, I even recruited Jason Fladlin himself several years ago to promote my online course. I recruited Jeff Walker to promote me, right? I even made a webinar for many of these things, right? So for the first time ever, I will lead a live Zoom training showing you how to recruit massive amount of affiliates to promote you, just like I did. I've been able to recruit some of the biggest, most well-known people in the game, being someone that hardly anyone has ever heard of before. You likely had never heard of me before. How do I do it? I'll teach you. I'll show you. And I've never taught this before. I'll show you how. All right, guys. So that's everything. An incredible offer, an amazing suite of bonuses, 5 of which you get instant access to right now to start using and watching. And all this at an unbelievable price. I think this hits Jason's motto perfectly. The offer is truly too expensive not to buy. And let's wrap it up where we started. Talking about the box. I'm making over $100 for every email address that I'm able to get. And this isn't lifetime value of the lead. No, I'm talking about the value of the lead after 10 days. That's the value of the lead after 10 days for just a specific promotion. So if you learned the power to make $100 per lead, per email address that you can gather, how many leads would you need? How many leads would you need? If you had the power of this 14-step process that I was able to get from Jason, right? How many leads would you need? Not many. And if you already have leads, if you already have email addresses, if you're a business or company that already has them, then you're actually just sitting on a gold mine. All you need is the webinar. You don't even need leads. You just need the webinar. GoToWebinars.com/Jeff. Guys, I want to reiterate really quick. This offer expires on Thursday, October the 5th. If you miss it, you miss it. The only opportunity to pre-buy these recordings for $9.97 that goes away. You can still pay $10,000 to come live. The ability to get to pre-buy the recordings for $9.97 that goes away this Thursday, October the 5th. If you miss it, you miss it. Might be another 6 years before something like this happens again. This rarely happens. This is a crazy, unique thing. It's unbelievable opportunity, rare opportunity. There's very real scarcity here because he teaches this so infrequently, right? And we've already determined that waiting is just fear-based procrastination anyway. All right, guys. So gowebinars.com/Jeff. That is my presentation. That is the offer. That is us here today. So now I want to transition to and I'm going to continue to teach a little bit about this. Next time I'm going to transition into Q&A. Q&A. I'm going to do some questions and answers here. I'm going to stay, and everything about how I handle Q&A, about what we do here in Q&A. This is still a teaching opportunity. This is still a teaching chance. I'm gonna learn from me as I'm doing it, and I'm gonna explain what's going on here. And I've learned everything that I'm gonna talk about here in Q&A from Jason Fladlien. So Jason, what he does in Q&A is he stays as long as is required to close as many sales as possible. He tries to answer every single question, every single possible objection that people could have. He tries to answer and solve on the Q&A. So I've been on, Jason has promoted my programs before. I've been on webinars with Jason before and seen this happen. So there was like this one example where Jason was promoting one of my programs one time. And we had like 100 sales when we got to this, like there was like 100 sales of the program when we got to this point where we switched to the Q&A right here where we are right now, right? And then Jason stayed and answered questions for 2.5 hours after that. And by the time that we finished, right, before he finished that Q&A session, there had been like 170 sales or 200 sales that had happened. So he basically doubled the sales, where most people would turn a webinar off or they would end a Q&A prematurely. He basically doubled the sales by staying on to answer and support as many people and answer as many questions as possible. So I learned that. I started mimicking that. I started instantly getting higher results in my webinars. I'm going to do that here as well with you today. So I'm going to take as much time as it takes. If you want to stay here, keep asking me questions. We're going to do that. And then also throughout the Q&A, as I notice things to talk about and notice things to make you aware of about some of the psychology and the influence and the power of what I've learned from him, what we're doing, I'll make some call outs, right? Because like there are little tricks in a Q&A that you can do and things that you can improve it to make a significant impact. And like one of those is how you answer people's questions too, because a lot of questions have a question behind them. There's an objection behind a lot of people's questions, and you have to do a good job of figuring out, all right, so what is the objection behind this question? And that's what you answer, and that's what you crush. Try to move person towards a purchase. And then we'll also do some prompting later. I can prompt you to get the types of questions that will better support the sale or that will better support other people being able to make this purchase, right? Okay, so guys, you have a chat box. I'm pulling it up now. You have a chat box, and you can put questions in this chat box, right? And chat's going to move fast, and I'm going to apologize because I'm going to try to get to everybody's questions, and I'll miss questions and stuff like that. I'm sorry. I'll see them, but I'm trying to do as many of them as possible. If I miss your question, you can ask it again. That's fine, and I'll try to get to everyone. I'll try to get to everyone. One question here is, would you deliberately speed up your speech during the offer? And I don't mean to. I may do that, but I don't mean to. That's not intentional. Gene has a great one. Gene says, Jason always teaches to include a guarantee. Where is it on this offer? That's actually a great point, Gene. So Jason does teach you to put a guarantee, some sort of guarantee in all of your offers. You know, money back guarantee of some kind, 10-day, 15-day, 30-day, or something like that. But in very unique niche cases, right, you can avoid that when what you're selling, what you're offering is so obviously powerful and so obviously good, it doesn't even make sense to provide one because you know what you have is valuable. So, like, the only way that a refund policy on something this valuable makes sense, uh, like, it's like we're talking about the greatest of all time. Like, imagine Michael Jordan teaching basketball lessons, and to convince people to do his basketball lessons, he had to add a 30-day no questions asked money back guarantee to his basketball lessons. You think Michael Jordan has a money back guarantee or refund policy on his basketball lessons? No, because he's the greatest that ever played basketball, and he knows anything that he's going to teach you or tell you is just correct. So there is no money back guarantee offer. So this offer is so strong. What is happening here is it literally, it can't. There's nothing that can come from it. You can't learn it better from anyone else. Everyone knows that. I know that. You really deep down, you likely know that too. That it doesn't need one. It speaks for itself. The offer speaks for itself. It is what it is. It is the best possible training on online marketing that you will ever see in your life. He knows that. I know that, and you'll know it after you watch it. So there doesn't need to be one. And there isn't one. Peter says just purchased. Hey Peter, that's a fantastic decision that you made. Donna, more clarification. How do you get people on your webinar with little to no leads? Yeah, this webinar is one of them. The webinar that you're on right now, you are on a webinar where I had 0 of the leads. No one that is on this webinar right now came from my email list, literally, because an affiliate promoted it. I convinced someone to send traffic to this webinar. So that is how I was able to get, we had 500 people on at one point of this webinar. That's how I was able to get 500 plus people onto this webinar. I convinced someone to drive traffic to it. I used an affiliate to drive traffic to this webinar. So let's think about this webinar from a meta perspective. What did I just do? I used someone else's leads. I used Jeff Walker's leads to come to a webinar and sell a product that I don't own. This is not my product. I'm selling a training of Jason Fladline. You literally saw me do it. Like I told you, you don't need leads. You don't need product to sell. You literally saw me do it. I just did it. I sold someone else's product. I borrowed someone else's authority, Jason's, and I sold his product. I had none of these leads were mine, and the product wasn't mine. You literally saw me do it just now. So that you can use this webinar as an example for that, about how anyone can do this in any market, in any way, no matter what your situation is, right? And I have done webinars just like that, where I use someone else's list to sell someone else's product. I have done it many times. Luis, how do you establish authority when you're a newbie without testimonials, right? There's been a change in belief and thinking with Jason and even me. Well, years ago, it was one of the things that you need to have a lot of things you should pack your webinars full of proof and testimonials and case studies of clients that you've served or people that you've helped. But and it's still important, and you should do that if you can, but it's not as important as it used to be, because so many people just fake that stuff anyway. There's a lot of people out there that have just made the people reticent or afraid of that sort of thing, or skeptical of that sort of thing, that it's not as powerful as it used to be anyway. So you can have a little sense of relief in knowing that. So it's not as important. You don't absolutely have to have testimonials and case studies and proof elements from people that you've worked with and stuff before. But in the same kind of way, you borrow it. You can borrow it. Jason teaches a lot of this, right? I can't get into it completely here. This is the type of stuff that you would learn from Jason, right? But I was able to create authority not by giving my own, but by borrowing it. I also, in this program, I didn't give you any results or testimonials or case studies for this event that's happening in a few weeks, because it hasn't happened yet. So it's impossible to have any results for it, right? So I didn't give you any. And still, we converted many, many sales here up to this point on this webinar, right? And another thing that I'll say about establishing your authority is when you can borrow it in lots of different ways. When I first started selling I had one of my keystone cornerstone program is an Amazon training. And when I was very first started promoting it, one of the big parts of my webinar is I told the story not of myself or not of a successful student of mine. I told the story of a very, very successful Amazon seller who had been in the news for selling their business for over $100 million that was doing the same business model that I was doing and teaching in my program. So I was just showing that, oh, it's possible you can do this, what I'm teaching, and you can even sell your business for $100 million, right? So I didn't train that person. I made it clear that I didn't train that person, but I used their story. I borrowed authority, and I used stories of other people to demonstrate that, and that works too, right? There are a lot of ways that you can do that, and Jason has taught me so many, right? Monica asked, did you get any copy from Jason or did you write the whole webinar yourself? That is a weird question to answer. It's a great question. It's like, so Jason did not have any direct input on anything that I wrote or said in that webinar. Everything that I wrote in this webinar, I wrote myself. It was but I was trained and learned from Jason. So it's like, I know many of, I wouldn't want to say I know all, but I know many of his techniques and I know the things to be able to create it, right? So he didn't directly work on this at all. No, this was all for me, but everything that I did, I learned from him, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, he had no direct input on this. I did this all on my own. Um, um, If I missed the live call with Jason on October 13th, will it be recorded? Yes. Yes, it will be. It will be recorded and made available. How precisely did you follow Jason's? This is from Carrie. How precisely did you follow Jason's system in crafting this webinar? So I have experience. Let's say this. At times I will deviate based on my experiences and what I'm comfortable with and what I do. And I think Jason would say, if Jason were on here and he heard me say this, he would say, I shouldn't deviate. I should just follow the system, right? And he's probably right. But sometimes I've been known to deviate and put my own spin on things, right? But I'm pretty much, I would say 90% followed exactly and now there are plenty of things like of course I'm not as good as him, but if you're 20% as good as Jason, you're a millionaire, right? If you're 10% as good as Jason, you're a millionaire. Really, if you're 10% as good as Jason, you're a multimillionaire, right? So I don't need to be as good as him. I just need to be good enough, and good enough is what you got and what you saw here, right? And so you only need to be good enough, right? Linda, this is a great question, Linda. Um, Linda said, my audience is CEOs of IT companies. And it felt weird doing the whole list of bonuses with dollar amounts. It feels a little sleazy. How do I get past that? Right. So, um, how do you get past it feeling sleazy? Well, it only feels sleazy. It would only feel sleazy. So, why do I not feel sleazy? Right, to do it and to show you those numbers because all those numbers are like legit. They're real. I didn't, and they're not embellished, right? Like when I'm showing you what the value of it is, it's like it's prices that people paid for things. It's the prices that would be charged for things. It demonstrates the exclusivity of that of what that bonus is like the template mother load, right? We're talking about it was assigned a $2,500 value. It's all of Jason's top performing webinars, the slide decks, the script. Like it's like you can't actually buy those. You can't get that stuff publicly. There's no way for you to go out and buy those and get access to the stuff. The only way that you're going to get that is through this offer. It's incredibly value. I would pay you that, right? And so it's like, is it true? Is how you get over it. Is it true? And can you be confident in feeling that it's true and delivering it and serving that to get through how you feel about it, right? So But I would also say, and I work and do some consulting work with people and help people and support people on things like this, right? But if you ever have a part where you psychologically are struggling to do it or perform it or to do it a certain way, even if it's the correct thing to do, maybe you should pull that out of your webinar and not do it, because if you are hesitant and because when you get to that part of the webinar, right, and you're hesitant to do it, it will affect you and your delivery. It'll affect you emotionally and mentally and subconsciously, and your delivery will be worse. So you should just, if you aren't confident in things, you should remove them for the own sake of your own presentation, right? That's true for me. There's a person who's very well known for webinars. I'm not going to say by name. I mean, they're great. They do a great job, but they have a particular part in their webinars that's just like, it's hard to do, because it just feels rough. And luckily, like, so I know what you're talking about, but Jason teaches to do the opposite of it, right? And that wouldn't align much better with me. So yeah, that's my certainly my feedback for that. Diane, a great question here. What kind of bonuses can you add to your webinar if you don't have any to provide? And I will say, like, most people, what the mistake that many people make, this is a huge tip here. The mistake that many people make is they think that they don't have bonuses, but usually you do. Most people put too many things in their offer, right? Let's say you have an offer. The reality of what you should do is you should just pull parts out of your offer to become bonuses instead of being core parts of your offer. Okay. Because the whole bonus process, going through bonuses, is about crushing objections. So if there are core parts of your offer that can just be pulled out and instead be positioned as bonuses, that's what a lot of people need to do. Instead of, you don't have to necessarily make up new things. I mean, you should try to come up with new opportunities and new bonuses, right? And brainstorm. You can look at some of the things we did here, and you should also do research and just look at other people's offers to see what their bonuses are to inspire you on easy to deliver things that you could include and add that crush objections. But usually they already exist in your offer. Or you can just think to yourself, all right, first just do a process of think about your desired customer and think about what are all their potential objections, right? Just think them through. What are their potential objections? Make a list and then go through what would be a bonus that I could offer, even if I had to make it up from scratch, or that I could find that would solve that objection, right? You do that. That's how you come up with your list of great bonuses. Mary says, I struggle in creating the value stack because I sell products related to parenting. Solutions are priceless. Yet often people don't associate dollar amounts with things like peace. Yeah, so don't. I would do exactly what you said. It's your value stack isn't a stack of necessarily about dollars. Your value stack is a stack of feelings and a stack of transformations. Your value stack is about transformation. So peace, like, like what you'll like, instead of you'll get this is a $1,500 value, this is, what this will provide is peace. And what is the benefit of peace? So that you can reframe these, right? You saw me do it from a monetary perspective, but you can do that from an emotional perspective, through a transformational perspective. So they are interchangeable in that way, Mary. Yeah. Robert, what price point works best for this webinar model? I think anywhere from, you know, $10 products to $5,000 products is the answer. When you start getting into, actually, that's not true. I think this model works at basically any price, right? You can sell things for $100,000 with this model. There does become a price point. The price point is usually around $5,000, where the webinar should drive people to a one-on-one phone close, most likely, or some sort of different type of phone close, some sort of one-on-one close, right? That I have found around that $5,000 threshold, it becomes difficult to create the sale. So instead of doing the sale on the webinar, it should drive to a call if it's above $5,000. But I've seen very many people do $15,000, $25,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 offers with a webinar, and they just close them on a one-on-one call, but they get people to the call through the webinar, right? So Basically, that's the only adjustment that you have to make on super, super high dollar things, right? It's how you create that interest for the call is for the webinar, and then you close on that call for the really, really high ticket stuff. Uh, Donna, I see the value in learning the webinar. How do you get people to the webinars? Well, that is taught in the webinar funnel secrets bonus that is included here, right? I can give you one part of that. One of the most integral, important part of how to get people to show up to the webinar is that you have to have a really, really good headline or a really, really good hook, right? So you have to think about it from what is I would recommend you start learning and you start researching how to create really, really good headlines and write really, really good short subject line hooks, like great subject lines for an email. And then what a great headline would be for a webinar registration page. So your subject line for the email that goes out to people or that whoever is sending, and then the webinar registration page headline that explains what people are going to learn and what they can expect and why they should register for this webinar. That's actually the most important part, in my opinion, getting a lot of people to show up and a lot of people to sign up is that. And so Jason is a master at that, teaches that, and you'll learn that too, and how I would got so many people to show up here today on this webinar. Will we Drew asked, will we get to attend the live event virtually, or is it strictly the recordings? It is strictly the recordings. It's just too complicated to do it live virtually, so it'll be the recordings only. When will I come to Brazil, Valdo? I hope so someday soon. I have a lot of friends in Brazil. Laura says, if I don't have a list, is this right for me, even though I just bought it? And the answer is yes. So the very first thing that I ever sold online sold without having a list. And then the second thing I ever sold, I sold without having a list. And the third thing I ever sold, I sold without having a list. So Laura, what's going to be great for you is to also the recruiting affiliates bonus, because I will basically, that's for everyone that doesn't have a list, whoever's if you've never sold anything before, that's fine. That's how I started. I had never sold anything before and didn't have a list. Learned how to sell other people's products and how to recruit affiliates to sell other people's products. And now, so also the cool thing is for you people that want to do that, you now are in the exclusive club. Okay, for people that take this training and buy this training, there are going to be so few people that get to learn the goats. They get to learn Jason Fadlin's webinar system right from this event. Well, whatever. How many people are going to be at the event? Few people. And then I told you this is an incredibly limited offer. This isn't like a public offer that's being made to be able to pre-buy these recordings. So few people are going to have these tactics from the greatest to ever do it. You're going to be one of those. So that's going to actually be one of the ways that you're going to be able to convince affiliates to want to promote your webinars is because you have the 14 steps. You have it. You are able to create promotional materials for other people or for yourself that no one else has that's high converting, because when your offer converts, people want to promote you. And now you're going to have the methods to have the highest possible converting offer that you learned from Jason. So it was a really smart investment. This is where you want to, if you're going to sell something, this is where you where you want to start. This is how to do it right. What platform is the best to host a webinar? I believe it's Zoom. Jason believes it's Zoom. I believe it's Zoom. And a big reason for that is because it just works. The tech works. It's reliable. It has all the features that you need. And people are comfortable with it. And most Americans and Europeans have used it. Most people have used it and have experience with it. So it's just kind of your best option for that reason. And so we feel strongly about Zoom. Fun fact: the Zoom actually invited Jason 2 weeks before they went public and became worth billions of dollars. They invited Jason in to hold a training about webinars, and he's the only person that they have ever invited to teach trainings before. Literally, Zoom, the multi-billion-dollar company, even used Jason for training. The isn't that crazy, right? Okay, so I'm just going through. Carrie, how do you determine affiliate profit sharing? Yeah, we'll talk about that in my training. But mostly it's pretty simple formula. Everyone kind of just does the same thing. It's mostly it's going to be like a 40% or 50% share of revenue. It's almost always that. If it's not that, it's there's a reason why it would be different. And we can talk through all those scenarios, but it's usually about a 60-40 split or a 50-50 split. One of the bonuses is another live webinar with me, but less of a webinar. The training on recruiting affiliates with me won't be selling anything. It'll just be teaching you how to recruit affiliates, how to recruit affiliates. Uh, Luis asks, why can't I see chat from other participants? Is this pre-recorded? It's not pre-recorded. Why can't I see chats from other participants? Here's another teaching moment. Here's a question that leads to a teaching moment. Jason and I both feel strongly that chat should not be public on a webinar. There's a few reasons for that. I'll just cover the main ones. One is it's a distraction. When people are constantly chatting with each other or commenting about the presentation, the viewers aren't paying attention to aren't doing as good a job and aren't as engaged with the content that's being shared and taught. And that's where you want everyone's attention on, is on the content, not on what's going on in the chat, right? So it actually pulls attention away from where you want them to be having attention, right? So if you keep it private instead of public, it puts attention in the correct place. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is that sometimes you just get, no matter what, there's always like a negative person, and one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch, and you don't want those bad apples spoiling anyone of their thoughts or feelings of opinion. And the third most important one is people will ask questions throughout a presentation, and sometimes a question that someone asks in the middle of a presentation can create an objection that the other hundreds of people watching didn't even know that they had yet. It raises an objection that they didn't even know they had yet. And that's fine. I'm not saying I'm scared of people raising objections. I just want to be able to crush the objections like we're doing right now with me talking and answering it and addressing it. But if it happens 20 minutes into the webinar and I can't address that question for an hour and a half later, then people just sat with that objection for an hour and a half. And I don't want that. I don't want to create that environment. I only want there to be objections presented if I can answer them and deal with them in the moment, instead of people sitting with them for a period of time, right? Does that make sense to everybody, right? So that's part of the reason why the chat is, that's a lot of people make that mistake. A lot of people have their chat open. A lot of people even will argue with Jason or me that they think that it's wrong to do, but there's $500 million in results that proves it's right. I know for sure that it's right. I have experimented with this both ways, and so I do believe. And you just want to address it. So you also heard me address it in the pre-part before the webinar officially began. So if you were on here before it officially began, I even addressed that the chat was private so that you knew and didn't think it was wonky or weird or anything like that. Yeah. Uh, Randy says, I just purchased. Can we get a replay of this webinar? That's a great idea, Randy. He said, I'm an awesome presenter. Sure. So, Heather or anyone else that's watching, if we can just make that note, take that note down. I'm happy to provide a replay of this as one of the deliverables for people if they want it. So Randy, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, replay for this that we just did today. I forgot about that. There will be a replay that'll go out in a few hours, so you'll have access to that too. Yeah. Elizabeth asks, "Is the recordings available forever?" I'm not sure if you're meaning if you buy the program or you mean this recording, this webinar that you're watching me give right now. So the webinar you're watching me give right now, me talking, that recording will not be available forever if you do not purchase. However, all the content that you get if you purchase for $9.97, yes, you will have, as far as I understand, lifetime access to that. You know, Lifetime as long as there's an internet, which hopefully is our full lifetime. Uh, Georgia, what percentage of the profits do you give the affiliate, and what percentage does the person with the product give you when you put on the webinar? So when you're doing a straight up affiliate promotion, right? And so when you're like that is a straight affiliate, right? Is going to be usually shared, like I said earlier, 40-60 or 50-50. What is pretty common in the industry when you're doing a webinar for somebody else and it's their like so like I've done that. So for instance, Jeff Walker, who sent you here today, I have done webinars for him to his audience selling his product, right? Selling his product. And when you do something like that for someone, it's typically similar to that of a percentage of a licensing deal. So just it's negotiable, just figuring out what makes sense and things like that. But it can be anywhere from 7.5% of revenue to 15% of revenue. I think is pretty common in those scenarios, anywhere in that range. It just there's some details that can change it. What is the link to look at the offer? Right there at the bottom of the page, gotwebinars.com/Jeff. What time is the live call with Jason? I don't believe it has an official time yet, just a date, but that'll be announced very soon. Great question from Joel Domingo. As questions run out, how do you conclude the Q&A without seeming like it runs out of gas at the end or ends on a low point? Great question. I'll do that here and demonstrate it. I'll demonstrate it. If you here more hooks to the end, right? If you stay all the way through the end, Joel, I'll actually just do it for real, and you'll get to see what that looks like. Okay, and it's a really strong tactic. It's a really strong tactic for driving sales, right? So great questions. Emily says, I've heard from some marketers that people don't have enough attention span for webinars anymore. How does Jason address this? You probably heard it from marketers that are either bad at webinars. You heard that from marketers that are bad at webinars themselves, or they're trying to sell you something that's not a webinar system. And so it makes sense for them to tell you that because it supports them. Look, I've been hearing people say for a long time, like webinars are dead or webinars are ineffective or whatever. And it's just like, it's not true. People just don't know how to do webinars correctly. That's what the answer is, right? Like it's not that they don't work. They work. You just have to know what the proper way to make them work is. And that has been a science that's really been hard for people to figure out. But people like Jason Fladlin have figured it out. There's so many people. There's so many examples of people that learned from Jason Fladlin that went from like being able to sell 2 units on a webinar, being able to sell 30 units on a webinar because they just learned all these different tactics, right? Like there's just so much to it that you just don't know what you don't know, right? But you have to trust me. Trust me. And so I'll say one thing about attention spans in a world with attention spans. If anyone wants to venture a guess, how many slides did I have for this presentation? Does anyone want to guess how many slides I had for this presentation? I changed slides on average probably every 10 seconds. So close to that, right? And so there's 188 slides. How many slides I believe that are? 188 slides part of this presentation. So a really high pace of slides and visual transitions will really, really help you keep people's attention too. So that's a great tip for you as well. What webinar platform are you using for the replay? I've only ever done one-off lives without a replay. So not a web. So what you use for the replay doesn't matter as much. I will just say, so you can use like Wistia or Vimeo are pretty popular ones. I think Vimeo is a lot cheaper than Wistia, Mark. But what's important for you, whatever that you use to host the replays of your webinar, is it has to be something where you can disable the controls. That's be something where you can disable the ability for people to fast forward, because you don't want to. Here's another huge tip. See this Q&A. Those of you that have stayed for this Q&A are getting a ton of value and a ton of great tips out of here, right? I see that I'm looking at my chat and it says I have 114 new messages of chat that I've not gotten to. So there's a lot of people asking questions that I haven't gotten to. And I apologize for that. I'm going to try to stay, and I'll get through as many of these as possible. So there's a lot of questions. I know it's, if you're watching still, I very likely not gotten to your question. Um, so you don't want people to be able to fast forward your replay, because what people do when they have the ability to fast forward is they will start it and then they'll watch for a few minutes and they'll fast forward to see what the offer is and see what it costs. And then they may just actually close it, the webinar. They may just close it when they see what it costs, or then they'll go back and watch, but now they're watching the whole time already knowing what the price is. And that is what kills replay sales. People being able to skip to the offer or skip to the price before they have went through all of the order of information that you gave and the tactics and the influence and the sales tactics that you used before they got through all that. And then if they already knew the price or they already knew the offer, it kills conversion. So that's why it's incredibly important to make sure that the controls are disabled on your replays so people cannot skip forward. They have to just watch it, just like people that were there live. They have to watch it in that same way, where you have to see everything before you can see the offer, right? What that also does is it keeps you from overexposing your offer to the world as well. Yeah, like if because there's a lot of people that'll just inevitably never make it to the end of your replay. That's fine, and they were never exposed to your offer, which is also fine, which means that they stay a lead that could be remarketed and sold in the future because they never got exposed to the offer. So there's a lot of reasons why that's a good, important tactic. That simple thing, like one of the most simple things ever. You just don't make sure people can't fast forward your replays for your webinar. Increases not only your sales for that webinar, but it will increase your sales for future webinars because you did not overexpose your offer to people. Creates a huge lift. Really simple tactic. Now imagine that I just told you that. A lot of people are going like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I get it. Now imagine if I just told you like 300 of those tactics that you could add to your webinars or to any of your marketing that drive increases results. That's basically, that's what hanging out and learning from Jason Fladlien is like. You just learn hundreds of these, like, oh crap, and realize how bad at this that you are and how much that you can do to increase sales. That's what it's like, and that's why you should either come and be there with me, because I'm going to be one of the $10,000 ticket people, learning from Jason because he's the best to ever do it. And why wouldn't you? Or you should definitely get these replays, $9.97 for this super exclusive training that very few people get to participate in. Go to webinars.com/Jeff. Is there lifetime access to material? Yep, as far as I know. Nina says, hi, bought it. You've done great, Dylan. Question about, yep, that your question has to be asked to the customer service team, but they will handle you. They'll get you. You'll be all straight if you do that. Eva, do the bonus inclusions need to be so overwhelming in amount and in monetary value as you have now to work well? Well, when you say an amount, you mean the number of them, the amount of bonuses, the quantity of bonuses? Feel pretty strongly. I mean that the more bonuses that you can, like, they have to be good. Don't include bonuses for the sake of including bonuses. Only include them if they're good, right? Include as many of them that are good, that address objections, as possible. In this case, I had 7 because 5 of them I wanted to be the things that I could deliver to you immediately. Things that you, as soon as you bought, because the event's going to be a few weeks out, I want to be able to deliver content to you immediately from Jason, right? So that's what a big part about those bonuses were. So I had very many of those, right? That was an important part of it. And when it comes to the monetary values of those bonuses, like, again, I am standing behind this. That value is 100% legitimate. These are all things that you absolutely can get that value from. That value, it stands to reason. You telling me that getting access to Jason's, getting literally access to the best webinar that Jason believes he's ever written, and then a step-by-step walkthrough of that webinar isn't worth whatever we valued it at, 997. You don't think it's worth it. You can't make 997 off of that, off of learning that the best webinar, that the greatest webinar writer of all time. Like, you don't think it's an authentic price? Of course that it is. You just believe that it is. I know that it is. It's like, actually, I get it. I get why this objection keeps coming up, and people are like, "Why? Like, the values are so high." Like, I understand it now. So this is like the third time that someone has raised this objection, and it's because this value is so good for this offer that some of you are perplexed by it, and you feel like the value is so good that there's something off and there must be wrong about it. But no, that just harkens back to what Jason literally, like, Jason literally, I have it, the quote from Jason here. I sell products that are more expensive to not buy. I include bonuses so good you'd be an idiot not to buy. So that it's literally all part of the process. You're overwhelmed. Everyone is thinking like there's so much value in this offer. It's crazy. Why would I not buy it? It's so valuable. You're suspicious that it's too valuable. Good, I've done my job. There's so much value that I'm getting questions in the chat of just like, oh, you're all these values are so high. There's so much you're giving away so much. Like, how? And it's like, yeah, that's the point. It's something so valuable that someone would be crazy not to buy it. That would be crazy not to buy it. And that's what we've tried to do here today. That's what Jason always tries to do. Your offer will succeed when your offer is incredible. Okay. Your offer will succeed when your offer is incredible. And that's what we've done here today. So much so the offer is so good that I've gotten multiple questions just asking about some of the values and applying to it because it's blowing people's mind. Good. That's what I wanted. Good question here from Gene. If you get everything for $997, how can it be worth $10,000 to attend live? Well, if you get to attend live, Gene, I would think that probably means you've likely never been to a high level event like this before, so that I can explain it. One of the things that I want you to understand is this event is going to be really small. There's going to be, 20, 30 people at it at the absolute most. So it's going to be a small room. That means you're going to get to break bread with Jason. You're going to be able to sit at lunch with him. He's going to learn your name, going to know you. And let's put it this way: like, how do you think you saw that I was texting with Jason, right? I showed you examples of me texting back and forth with Jason. How do you think Jason knows who I am as a person? Because I've met him before, right? And like, let's say you wanted to meet Jay, like there's a lot of people that are going to go here and they're going to want to like basically pitch Jason on their product or program, or so that he'll create a webinar for them and promote their program with his own webinar, right? That's absolutely worth $10,000 for people. I've done that before. There's going to be all kinds of high level people that you're going to be able to meet and network with while you're there, right? So that's why, like, I haven't looked at the sales coming through or whatever. I'm sure people just on this webinar have already bought the $10,000 ticket, but like, it's immensely more valuable actually than you could ever think to be in the room with Jason Fladlien, learn from him, and also be there with all the other ballers and high level people, right? Uh, there's a long question here that I just don't have time to read, but it looks like it was a good question from MJ that just don't think I have time to sit and address it, but I do want to acknowledge MJ that I saw it and I would love to answer it. I may come back around to it. Uh, he says, I'm in just enrolled. Looking forward to see how you handle onboarding gratefully, Greg. Hey, congratulations, Greg. Trust me, what I've learned is incredible. And so what you'll learn is too. Brielle, why don't we have a multi-pay option for this? The way that we feel, really, it's cheap enough to not have a multi-pay option because it's going to be delivered so soon, and the value of it. Just a thinking there, right? It's just more complicated to provide multi-pays, and this is a cheap enough offer for what you're actually getting that it just wasn't decided to be done. what is the best strategy for getting a Andrew says, what is the best strategy for getting a product owner to agree to you selling their stuff? How do you compensate them? What percentage? Best strategy is to be able to prove to them that you have a high converting offer. And then we'll go over how you do that in my live affiliate recruitment training that I'll do. Yeah, but you just have to prove to them that you have a high converting offer. So, but usually, like one of my things I'll say is like you can just work your way up and you start small. So you start with it's easier to convince people with smaller lists, and you can do it small lists, and people don't care about results in terms of a dollars sold figure. They care about conversion figures, right? So even if you did a webinar to 10 people or to 20 people or to 30 people, your conversion number is your conversion number. So that does usually scale so long as the audience is the same that shows up, whether there's 30 people or 300 people or 3,000. So if you can prove it at any level, then you've got quantifiable data of result. Plus, you can also just show it to people too. You can just show people your presentation, and then they'll know if they know anything about marketing. They'll know, oh, this is good. I should do this. Or you can show them portions of it. Fierce says, "What's your relationship with the wholesale formula?" I own it. I own it, and I'm one of the founders of it. Trisha, how do these tools work for a variety of personalities? For example, my style is slower and more contemplative, as is my work. Will you speak about this a bit? Yes, Jason, absolutely. That is a great one for that Jason will cover because this works. You don't have to be a fast talker. You don't have to have a thick country accent like me. Jason, in fact, is very Midwestern, so he has no accent. And yes, so the styles match really and I'm sure that your style resonates and would matches better with your audience for the type of work that you do and what you share, right? So for here, but it's so yes, absolutely, there are styles that match the strategies that match this. Jason has consulted for many different people in a variety of different personalities and styles and strategies and markets. So yes, Patricia, I can confirm with you, absolutely, your questions will get answered in the program, 100%. What do you think about Webinar Jam Studio as a platform to use? I have not heard of Webinar Jam Studio. I've used Webinar Jam before. I think Webinar Jam is pretty good, but Zoom is just a bit more reliable, and just because so many people have used it, and is why we feel so strongly about it. Is there any coaching included with the $997 offer? The answer is no. There is the live call that you'll get the opportunity to join that Jason will be hosting, and that's a form of coaching. Or you'll be able to ask questions on there with him, like you're asking questions with me now. You're getting coached right now. You'll be able to do that with Jason on that live call, whether even on the $997 offer, but no deeper level of coaching. No, this is what it is. This is straight up the greatest of all time that ever taught webinars is going to walk through his system and teach you how to do it, and you will apply it yourself, and you won't need coaching. It's a process that it's simple enough. You will understand it. You will be able to perform it. And even if you do it at 40% of what he taught or 20% at what he taught, you'll get massive results with it. So you don't need, this is a no coaching needed offer. You don't need it. What is taught is so good. It's so effective, and it will make so much sense. There's no coaching required, no coaching needed. David Laws, is it better to attend in person? Of course, it's going to be better attend to person. Like just absolutely, because you're going to be able to be in the room. You're going to be able to ask questions directly. You're going to be able to get personal support in there. Plus, I'm going to be there. So if you wanted to chat up with me and hang out with me, like there's so much value of being in the room. It's if you've never been in one of these rooms before, like you just it's probably hard to understand how valuable they are. But I spend tens of thousands of dollars every year to be in rooms like this, to meet people like this, to network with people like this, and to learn strategies and things from other people in the room, and be able to ask my own questions to the presenter in the room, which you have the opportunity to do. Marissa, do you leave answers to these questions in the Q&A, in the replay? Do you leave this Q&A in the replay? And yes, not always, but oftentimes we will, and we will on this replay. Yeah, yeah, we oftentimes do because if there's people that are going to hang out in the replay and watch it, it's super valuable for them too. Andrea, so your webinars are actually live. I've signed up for webinars where I could tell it was recorded. Yes. So Jason is also a very, very firm believer in this. I'm also a very firm believer in this. Jason is highly, highly against doing those fake live webinar things. If you're ever watching a webinar with me on Zoom, right, it is live. It's always live. And it's the same thing with Jason. There's no fake live webinars with Jason. There's no fake. If there are, you're watching a replay, it's very clearly stated at the beginning that's a replay that you're watching and you're part of a replay, right? So that is inauthentic. It is an outright lie. We are very much against it. You should not do that. Inauthentic. Do not do those fake live webinars. You can rest assured anytime you see me or Jason in a live webinar, it is indeed live. Teresa, thank you so much. This is one of the best webinars I've been on in ages. I've learned so much. I thank you very much for that. I love that comment. Uh, let's see. What about perpetual webinars? I'm assuming perpetual webinars is relating to like the webinar, basically kind of like the fake live stuff where they're like um, I'm pretty sure the first time I ever saw someone do this was like Neil Patel a long time ago, where basically it's a webinar recording that has live chat and it's like starting every 15 minutes, basically like no matter when you register, it's happening in 15 minutes kind of thing. And we were like those things can work, but we feel very strongly. Jason feels very strongly that you just have to be truthful, and people can't be deceived. You shouldn't be deceiving people. It's just going to hurt you and your brand long term. You should just be honest with people if that's what it is that they're signing up for. But that's what they're signing up for. So we're not in favor of doing that and being deceitful ever. I'm not a big fan of people doing it. How many people are on this webinar after an hour? And it was been 2 hours. Has it been 2 hours? Yeah, it's been 2 hours. There's 173 people on here. Gary says, didn't you actually include the objection that webinars are dead in one of your emails? On the registration page? But yeah, on the registration page. That's a good eye, Carrie. You can see you can be crushing objections before people even show up. And sometimes you need to do that because sometimes you need to crush objections in your email copy or in your headlines or in your registration pages because someone may not show up to the webinar at all because they're just like teaching webinars are dead. Why would I come to this? They're pointless. No one makes money with webinars. Wrong. But it's like I said in that registration page, I'm happy to let people keep thinking that webinars don't work because the like then even less people do them. Less people that do them, the more effective they become just for the sake of existing. So people just do them wrong. People think webinars are dead because they tried them and they sucked and they didn't learn from Jason Fladlien. No one has ever learned from Jason Fladlien and then uh, sucked at webinars. It's not possible. You just had to have not done what he said. That's the only way. You had to have just not done what he said. Odita, where can newbies like me find an affiliate to do a webinar for their service or product? I'll tell you, I found the first one that I ever did through my Facebook group. The first person who ever promoted a webinar of mine, they were the moderator of a Facebook group that had 600 people in it, and I sent them a private message, and that was it. So it can just be that innocuously silly, right? There's access to 600 people to promote to a Facebook group. David says, not for any particular reason, but does Jason have a background in psychology? No, Jason's background is actually in rap. It's a story better told by him. But Jason, for a period of time, was a rapping monk, and I'm not joking. I'm not making that up. He was a rapper, a music performing artist, and also a monk, and then eventually transitioned into online sales and marketing. So his background is very bizarre and peculiar and fascinating, but it's better for him to tell you that story than me. If I don't really want to sell other people's seminars or programs or products, can I have other people sell mine if I don't have a list? Yes, yes, that's also what we do, and I do all day, every day. Yes, absolutely. I don't care to state this out loud. John asked, I missed the special one thing that doubles conversions that's not in the replay. Can you tell me here, please? Uh, I'll say it's fast action bonuses done correctly. Fast action bonuses done correctly. Greg, hi Dylan. What platform does Jason host the content on? Is it accessible by iOS like Kajabi? It's Kartra. So yes, it should be accessible by iOS. Yeah, no problem. How can this, Linda asks, how well can this transition to an evergreen webinar, assuming that you use some software so you can create deadlines and stuff like that? Yeah, it absolutely can convert to for and be used for evergreens. Again, just so long as like you're using it more as a not as an evergreen webinar, but if your evergreen process is more of it being an evergreen video content that people have access to a live limited time recording, right? Um, what the most popular and the tool that my team uses to be able to do that and create deadlines is Deadline Funnel. That's software that we use for that. Deadline Funnel. Deadline Funnel is what we use to be able to do that and set deadlines and stuff like that. Actually called Deadline Funnel. Chris, is anything we need to do after purchasing for any of these bonuses? Nope, you'll just get them. You'll just be granted those bonuses. Jill or Gil, rather. Thank you for that comment. You are correct. I didn't even realize that I had done that. But thank you for pointing that out. That's very helpful. Um, Laura T says, thanks for staying with us. I have been on some of Jason's programs before from a different email. Uh, I decided I want to upgrade to live. Is that doable later? Yeah, if you want to come in person, hang out with me and Jason, you can do that later. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. Just reach out to support. Uh, what are your top tips for first time webinar presenters? That's a good one. Run through it. Well, I'll give you a few. Run through it once with no one there because you'll catch things that are bad or wrong or weird in it. So run through it once without anyone there. You're just yourself for real. Um, I personally recommend, and Jason at the highest level, some people don't need to do this. Some people are just good at it. I'm not. So I recommend, and Jason recommends at the highest level that you should script every word of your presentation. Some people can do it without that. They can just roll it off bullets and stuff like that. But I think you should script every word of your presentation. It helps you keep you tight on time, fast, and efficient. And it make sure that you remember all the important salient points. It requires more work up front, uh, right, for you to completely write and script every word. Takes more time, but you get a better, it's more consistent, better experience when you do that. So I recommend scripting up front. Make sure you run through it yourself before you have anyone live, so you can kind of see it and feel it and know how it flows and what you should do, right? Hmm. Monica says she's still here. Russell says she's still here. They were saying that 7 minutes ago. Maybe they're still here. This Q&A is I hope it's valuable. I'm trying. Uh, yeah. Diane says I believe webinars do work if done right. They do. I'm living proof of that. Carrie says, approximately how many hours have gone into crafting this webinar? How many people have been involved? Please share whatever you're comfortable with sharing. Yeah. So there's the only person that's been involved is me. I mean, like, like I said, Jason didn't help me write any of this. No one helped me write any of this stuff for this whole presentation, for this whole promotion, right? So obviously, I convinced Jeff to promote this. One of the ways that I convinced him was, you or your team won't have to do anything. I'll write everything. I'll write emails. I'll write registration pages. I'll write. He obviously wrote the emails that went out to you guys, but I mean the follow up emails that come from me after you registered. I'll write the registration page, and I'll do the webinar. Jeff, you don't even have to show up. So I do it all. I do all of it. It's just done by me. I don't need any help. I don't need any additionals. You can do it all. Now, yeah. How many hours have went into it? Gosh, I don't know. I don't know it in so many hours, but I can tell you it took about it. Like I don't know how many hours each day or whatever, but it took like 5 days. It took like 5 days on to put together everything. Put together what is the offer, what is the it's not just putting together but it took about 5 days to put together all of it. What is the offer? What are the slides? What is the script? What is the registration page? And then write it all. About 5 days, I think. Could have been the 5.5 or something. You know what I mean? Well, how much time is ideal to promote a webinar? Great question. It is 2 to 3 days is the recommendation. So the big mistake that you typically see is people will promote a webinar and the webinar won't be happening for like 7 or 8 or 10 days, and that creates so much attrition um, for people not showing up that it's just pointless to really even do. So the typical recommendation is 2 days before it happens live or 3 days before it happens live is when you should start promoting it, because that's going to create that balance and that threshold where the most amount of people have the highest show up rate happens, right? Because if you promote a webinar and it's not going to happen for 7, 8, or 10 days, you may have more people register, but the amount of people that actually show up is just way, way less. So you're better to have it be a much tighter sequence. So because so people are still excited and still remember it, right? You want to keep it shorter, and there's other ways to go about that. In some situations, that's not always possible, and there needs to be a longer time frame for one reason or another. In that case, then you have to have a lot of content and emails that keep the person engaged and warm and basically are reselling them to want to come to that webinar every day, even after they've registered, right? Uh, Valerie, I'm assuming I don't have to have my website set up. Nope, you do not need a website. You can do this without a website. I mean, I know this for a fact because when I first learned about Jason and I knew his results and I knew how much he had sold. I like he had a website, but it was so bad. It was like I didn't even think it was possibly his. I was like, this can't be his Jason Fladlund's website. This guy that like when I heard about him, it's like the guy that just did that $9 million webinar. This is his website. What? It was just so terrible. None of it ever mattered. None of that stuff ever mattered. He had a terrible website for many many years, um, and but just was crushing it with these big promotions. It never mattered. Hey, Barbara, yeah. Barbara asks here, can you please give an example of future pacing? Right. So future pacing um, is a psychological influence technique that needs to be in every single webinar, and it's in every high performing webinar ever. And it's also a topic, or it's a term that you should Google. It's really about like once you understand what the word is, then you can Google and find so much information about what future pacing is and examples of how to use it. But what future pacing is basically putting the audience or the viewer or the reader walking them through what it would be like how their future would change, what their life would be like, what the benefits would be to them in their life and their transformation would be to do what it would be if after they have done whatever it is that you're talking about or you're teaching or training, right? That's what future pacing is. It's right. So you're making people basically you're trying your best to make people kind of daydream and think about and resolve within themselves uh, what their future could be and what their results would be, what their life could be like if they had, more money, or if they, or not if they had more money, if they had this program so they could make more money, and what could it do for them? What could it create for them? And when you future pace, you significantly increase the likelihood because you change and improve the mindset of the viewer, so they're more likely to um, take you up on your offer. If you attend live, do you also have access to the recordings? Yes, Russell, you do. How many people are on my team? Vivaldo, how many people do I have on my team? Way fewer than you think. Uh, I've got like domestic employees. I have two full-time, one that's a contractor, another two contractors, two full-time, and six virtual assistants from the Philippines. And I have a multi-million dollar information marketing business with that level, super small team. And that's partly because, so it's like, all right, so like, wait, Dylan, you're doing like $5+ million a year with 2.5 domestic employees and six virtual assistants from the Philippines. And the answer is yes, because my business isn't complicated, because all I do are webinars. I get people to show up for webinars and I do webinars. So it doesn't require a big team, even at the $5 million+ scale. It's really simple. I wouldn't have given this presentation and if I didn't believe it or if it wasn't the reality for me, and it is. So yeah, small team required for such a simple process. That it was on a post-it note. Get people to show up live, do webinar. So it is absolutely a business model where you can have nobody. It's just you, owner operated. You can do it all, but be a $1 million or multi-million dollar business, owner operated, one person, no help. Absolutely not even like hard to be able to do that. Valerie, hey, welcome. Yes, great. You have not made a mistake, of course. It's no, glad to see you jumping in. Some most people you've ever had on a webinar. A few thousand. I've had a few thousand before. I know. I mean, like in nothing like Alex Hormozi earlier this year. Alex Hormozi, if any of you don't know, he did a webinar with 500,000 people on it this year, and right before he did it, he consulted with Jason in preparation for it. And it's one of the most well-known, most talked about webinars of all time. Like a lot of people have heard about it, a lot of people were there, and a lot of people like know about it. And Alex directly credits Jason for so much of that. So directly credits him. Drew, how do you get paid when doing affiliates or joint venture promotions? Is it on the honor system? I mean, sometimes there's contracts, or sometimes there's but like it's usually like on the honor system, I guess. But I've never not been paid, and I've never not paid anybody. So I think it's something not worth worrying about. Because if someone's not going to pay you, then they're just no one's going to work with them as soon as the word gets out, and so their reputation will be ruined. So not really something to worry about. Don't work with shady people, and it won't even be possible. Green, how soon do you send out the replay? Fast as we can. How long do you leave it up? And when do you close cart? So that's dynamic. It changes offer to offer. It just depends. I personally like to do really, really short windows for cart close on a lot of promotions like this, or we're working with an affiliate, because we don't want to put a lot of a pressure on the affiliate. When I'm working with an affiliate like Jeff, for instance, I don't want him to feel like he has to commit 2 weeks to promote this. I want him to feel like it's a really fast in and out thing, so he doesn't have to stress his list or his audience or his team. So I make the cart close. I make everything happen super fast. The first emails for this promotion went out on Sunday. The cart will be closed on Thursday. Really short period of time, happened really, really fast. And when I do affiliate promotions like that, that's how I like to do it, super fast and compressed. If the affiliate is more comfortable for there being more time, or I'm comfortable asking them for more time, maybe I will add a day or two into that open cart period. But that's about it. Not a whole lot more than that. This one is a little bit short of a window. Ideal is more closer to like 3 or 4 days, I think. And then for big, big launches where there's a lot of coordination, a lot of people promoting, a lot going on, you typically want more like a 5 to 7 day when there's a ton of people promoting and there's so much to coordinate. You need that room just for everybody to be able to get on the same page. But when it's just a single promotion to a single targeted list, I like to be fast and efficient like this is. Laura says I have a tiny workshop scheduled for the Saturday. Yes, this Saturday. I only have 4 attendees and it's got a low price of 197 for the first 20 people. And I'm talking about my TEDx talk, accidental hypnosis and self hypnosis. Any chance of you telling me how to get more people in or selling it for whatever is worth it for you? Yeah. So we've got 4 people signed up. I would need a little bit more information. I would need to know how big is the list? Where are first of all, how big is the list that you marketed it to? You've got 4 people that are signed up for Saturday. Um, and how many, if you tell me that, oh, I sent it to 200 people and you only have those 4 signups, and I would tell you then the reason that you probably only have 4 signups is because either you have some technical issue that things are broken and people aren't able to sign up, or your subject lines and registration page hooks and headlines just weren't interesting and engaging enough to drive that inspiration to sign up. Right, that would be the way that you could get more people signed up, is to have better headlines and hooks in the emails, subject lines, and on the registration page that makes people want to join and be interested to get there. Right. That's number one. And so you would do that, reframe that, change that, start emailing immediately on that reframe. What should be the minimum offer to make it worthwhile? Would be building on your authority. My integrity is intact, but people will not know of me in this context. I mean, I don't understand the question. It's like I'm sorry, Valerie. Can you recommend the source from the Philippines though? I can do that. Um, I used onlinejobs.ph is the website that I originally used to recruit and find virtual assistants to hire onto my team, and then I ended up finding an amazing executive level virtual assistant. I mean, like a unbelievable employee out of the Philippines that is just crushes it. And they just hire people. They're the ones who hire and manage the rest of the team from the Philippines. So I don't even have to do it anymore. They do it. So if I use that website to find an amazing team members. So I'm certainly in favor of using it. Fine. Eli asks, does this model work for a small product like a book? Absolutely. Actually, Alex Hormozy that we were just talking about that got 500,000 people to show up to his live webinar, 500,000 person webinar. That's all he was selling was a book. That's all he was selling was a book. So yes, not only is it a way to sell a book, if you have lots of other bonuses and great things about the book, you can get people to buy 10 or 100 books on your webinar too. That's what Alex was doing. He was like, hey, you can buy 1 book and this is what you get. If you buy 10 books, this is what you get. If you buy 100 books, this is what you get. Right. And so if you buy 100 books, just give them away to people. Because he just wants his book out there, right? He wants more people to read it, because if people read it, then they get into his back end funnels and stuff like that for his agency and all that, right? So yeah, absolutely works for books. Jason has sold many books himself with this model, lots and lots of books. What's the conversion rate difference between cold and warm traffic? Asks Drew. Yeah, it's different. It's better with warm traffic. I've done webinars where warm traffic conversion I've gotten conversions as high as like 17%, 20%, 25. I've done a webinar with like 24% conversion on really, really warm leads. Cold traffic, it just depends on what kind of cold traffic, how good is the offer. But like you can see 3% conversion, 6% conversion, 8% conversion on cold traffic. You can see 13% conversion on certain type. Part of it depends on your definition of cold traffic. How cold are they? But I mean, like, but yeah, it varies a little bit depending on a few factors. But you can legitimately get into the double digits on cold traffic if it's everything is right. Valerie, are you using artificial intelligence to redo these programs? No, I don't. So anything that you ever get from me up to this point, I like artificial intelligence. I appreciate it. I don't use it myself very much. I'm still authentically human in everything that I do, at least. So far, it's a personal decision. Doesn't mean that stuff isn't good. I just don't do it. So I am authentically human in everything that I do these days. But I will make sure and tell people if that ever changes. If I'm less authentically human, I will begin to was on a webinar with 275,000 people live. Yeah, I know who I so I know that person who did that webinar. Any advice for marketing with webinars to a live event like concerts or performances? Yeah, the best way that you could do something like that is to give people a taste of what they're going to experience, and that's what we did here. So it's the same process, right? Here, and what kind of those, what like I would say, live events like concert and performances. Some of the best ways that you're going to be able to create webinars for that sort of thing is if you're able to sell any backstage access or opportunities or unique access. If you can sell access, special access, or unique opportunities, that's going to be the best things that you can offer and create. Use webinars for that sort of thing. Is selling special access and giving a taste of what people are actually going to get and access to uh, in the webinars themselves as well. Okay, I think I have made it to the bottom of the list here of questions. So uh, if you have any questions before we sign off and close this thing off here, make sure and put them in here right now so that I can get to them. Make sure that you put them in here right now so I can get to them before we uh, finish this thing off. Uh, and I want to tell, I've got, so those of you that are here all this time, I've got a special story that I want to share with you. If you stuck around this, like Megan, hey, congratulations, Megan, just join in there. I got a special story that I want to share with you. Um, I used this webinar structure, not the new updated one, but I used the old one that I learned from Jason. I used that to close a $7 million sale. How did I do that? $7 million sale. So here we go. I had a business that I wanted to sell. I had a business of mine that I owned that I wanted to sell, and I decided I thought the business was worth $7 million. It's like 6,975,000 or something like that. But like I thought it was worth effectively $7 million. That business I wanted to sell, and I was able to schedule a Zoom meeting with. I was able to schedule a Zoom meeting with two people. Two people came to this Zoom meeting. Zoom meeting with two people. One was a person who owned a private equity fund, and the other one was a person that managed high net worth people's uh, portfolios, investment portfolios. It was a family wealth manager. So those are the two people that came that I targeted. So I had a webinar for two people, and I presented my prospectus, which is basically your prospectus for selling a business is just like your slideshow that explains the business that you're selling. But I did it in this format, in this fashion that I learned from Jason that I did for you here. The prospectus for selling my business not only did both of those people independently agree to buy my business, um, right there on the spot. It was literally I wasn't even done. I wasn't even done with the presentation, and basically one of the guys stopped me and he's like, "You don't, we're good here. We're doing it. We're doing it. Like we're good." Like so, and he would tell me that he's seen literally hundreds of those prospectus business selling presentations, hundreds of them. Mine was the best one that he's ever seen. Not close, right? So if you ever think to yourself, all right, uh, you ever think to yourself like, I could sell a business one day. This is the best way also to create your prospectus and to get people highly, highly interested in purchasing your business. Okay. So it was literally, uh, the $7 million webinar that had, so what's my earnings per lead there? You know what I mean? Earnings per lead is, uh, $3.5 million per lead in that situation. That's really unique. I get it. Uh, but like that just goes to show you like the power of this. Who knows, maybe it doesn't happen. They don't agree to buy the business if I didn't have these skills that I developed and learned from Jason to be able to set up my prospectus in that perfect way. So that's just one that I absolutely wanted to share. Uh, okay. All right, guys. So that is, that is it, and that concludes. It's going to conclude our Q&A, for today. And so I want to thank you for this time together. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to just to also confirm with you and let you know that that the decision to learn from Jason and the decision to make to get these, to either attend in person or to buy these recordings, is one that is going to absolutely transform your life and your business. And I told you that if you're watching this, this is for you. It doesn't matter who you are. This is for you. All right, guys. This was awesome. I loved this opportunity to do Q&A. You guys were great for this. So any of you that are coming alive, I'll see you there. For those of you that are doing the recordings, you may see me appear on the recording. But I can tell you that all the instant access stuff that you're going to get made available to you is going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. And the event itself is absolutely going to blow your mind as well. So, all right, guys. We're going to go ahead and bring this puppy to a close. It has been wonderful. I have really enjoyed getting to talk to each and every one of you. So we'll see you.